What's up, QAA listeners?
The fun games have begun.
I found a way to connect to the internet. I'm sorry, boy. Welcome, listener, to the 67th chapter of the QAnon Anonymous podcast, the John Solomon episode. As always, we are your hosts, Jake Rockatansky,
Julian Field,
and Travis View.
When Sean Hannity, Trump, and Q get together to play poker like those dogs in the painting, sometimes they get talking faves. Did you know, for example, that Sean Hannity's favorite toothpaste is a mix of cement and dog shit? Or that Q prefers Dairy Queen restrooms? Or that Trump's favorite color is Parmesan? Wild stuff. But there's one thing they always agree on, and that's investigative reporters. All three of them simply love a guy called John Solomon, who writes for The Hill, which is essentially a CVS receipt squeezed through a garbage compactor. If you've heard the name John Solomon recently, it's probably because he's been mentioned multiple times by witnesses in the impeachment inquiry. You know, that really interesting event on television that is totally worth watching. It turns out John, slipped information by human scream mask Rudy Giuliani, has been feeding red pills to our big, spongy president, and it may have started this whole Ukraine thing in the first place. So for this episode, Travis is going to guide you through that beautiful mess, which Jake will follow with a lost John Solomon article he happens to have gotten his little mitts on. But first,
QAnon News.
First up, we have a Mategate update. And of course, Mategate refers to the scandal in Australia where the Prime Minister there apparently has a cozy relationship with the QAnon pusher Burned Spy. So apparently last year, Australia concluded a 5-year investigation into child sexual abuse at religious and state-run institutions that were responsible for keeping children safe. In response to that inquiry's findings, Prime Minister Scott Morrison offered an apology to child sex abuse survivors on behalf of Australia.
I apologize to you on behalf of Hillary Clinton.
Right. But according to the Australian publication Crikey, which has been following the story, the Prime Minister's use of a specific phrase has raised questions about the influence that his QAnon-pushing friend has on him. So the phrase that Morrison used is ritual abuse, which isn't commonly used by sexual abuse victims or their advocates, but is commonly used by QAnon followers who think that the sicko elites use children in their satanic rituals.
It fucking rules that for that speech he just had John Carpenter soundtrack going.
Yeah. Scott Morrison's office claimed that they got the phrase from victim advocates. However, members of a panel of survivor advocates actually that advised the government said that they weren't. And this is what one of them said.
We were consulting with victim groups, and if that had come up at all, we would have got rid of it. If anything, it would have been, don't use this.
Yeah, no shit.
So
ritual abuse.
Mm-hmm.
That is some Christian people standing around in a kitchen kind of shit.
Also reported by Crikey is that in the hours before Morrison's address to Parliament, Burned Spy sent a text to a colleague that said, "I think Scott is going to do it."
He just meant like a handstand while eating a hot dog, which is what they do down there.
Sure.
Yeah, or maybe he was like about to beat the final boss in Dark Souls or something.
Probably.
Everybody gather around Scott's place. He's got the...
Yeah, people think he's dumb and like a right-wing hack, but the reality is he's just always tired from playing Dark Souls all night.
Mm-hmm.
Shortly after the speech, Burned Spy posted a tweet that called special attention to the phrase. He said this in that tweet.
What a great speech. At Scott Morrison, MP, acknowledging the victims of ritual abuse. View at 6:06 in clip below.
So this is a very strange situation. So it looks like a major world leader is being directly influenced by a QAnon promoter, and it's not Trump, which is...
Man, this is a paranoid conspiracy theory Travis is trying to start.
Come on, man. I think there's the preponderance of evidence demands.
Get your feet back on the ground.
I don't understand why this isn't like a bigger scandal. I feel like this is like, you know, if an out... Yeah, I don't know. I suppose you know in our government, you know, we have bad people who are influencing the president. But it's wild to me. Like a QAnon promoter is like changing the words that a world. Why isn't there people freaking out about this?
Well, you know
Yeah.
what? I don't know if it's such a bad thing. Look, you've got the people who, in a democracy, the people sort of, dictate the policy. And look, you've got one guy, and his policy is making his way, to the parliament. I mean,
I would hate to see the world after maybe like a couple hundred years of Christian extremists directly controlling multiple big governments and maybe even directing armies. Like that would be a really hard place to live in, right? If that had been happening since. Let's see.
well, I mean, according to John Tidor, that is what the future holds for us. And
the future, huh?
he's
John Tidor was able to see all the way back to the 1500s.
He
Incredible.
was very content there, it seemed.
Yeah, I mean, they literally committed genocide on multiple continents because they believed that God sent them as the chosen people to like harvest the earth for their profit.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose
Is this so much crazier?
I suppose when you put things in perspective like that.
Yeah. Well, as long as we keep, rubbing our bullets in, pork grease or whatever so that we can win this holy war,
For our second story, there have been a handful of Q drops this week, and I'm going to focus in on just two of them. And one of them was another Q proof. Q keeps dropping the new Q proofs. And I think I've said this before, but if you meet someone online and 2 years later they're still trying to prove that they're real, then you are being catfished, obviously.
Yeah.
So in a drop on November 19th, Q referenced an earlier drop in February of this year, which said this in part.
Step 4. Open new and fake and false investigations as chairman of the House Intelcom to retain disinformation campaign designed to keep liberal/D-Americans on board to regain power and prevent prosecution.
So here, Q is implying that back in February, Q predicted that the chairman of the House Intel Committee, Congressman Adam Schiff, would open the currently ongoing impeachment inquiry. And of course, there are a couple of problems there. Firstly, that February Q drop came a few days after Congressman Schiff announced the House investigation into Russian interference on February 6th, which was separate from the special counsel investigation. So that House, hold on. That House investigation is obviously the new investigation that Q was referring to. The other problem is that Congressman
Can you
Schiff,
imagine jacking off with no lube and no porn and no dick? That's like what the Democrats do every day.
What do you mean? What do you mean? No dick? Just airing it like
No.
you're playing an air guitar?
You're just taking your knuckles and you're scraping them against a wall. You're just until you're bloody and it hurts.
I see. You're standing against like a stucco wall with
and yet
little
you
sharp,
still
with
think,
little sharp pokies
I'm
coming
about to
out.
come. But you're never going to. You're never going to. It's boring.
You're just gonna.
And also, Adam
rub-
Schiff. Hey, I got to give this one to Trump. He's got creepy fucking eyes.
Yeah,
I don't
it's
enjoy
true.
his whole vibe. I fucking don't like him. He's shifty as fuck. He's shifty Schiff.
You know what? His vibe sucks.
He sucks. I hate him.
I'm gonna be honest. And you know what?
I
I'll
hate
say
him.
something else.
I hate him
I'll
so
say
much.
something else. His district is a fucking pit. Just
There we go.
if you put one iota of the effort
Yeah.
that you have into fucking impeaching Trump, into fucking cleaning up your fucking district, like I wouldn't have to see just the fucking
Oh,
saddest
man.
the saddest representations of humanity.
Travis is
just
so bummed out right now.
Sorry.
sounds like your beef is with local and state government and not federal government.
Yeah, get it
I
together,
think
Jake.
that,
I was always on Travis's side for this one, by the
What?
way. Yeah. Fuck you, Jake.
I'm
Stop talking shit about shifty 50.
I'm almost positive that
What?
Schiff has something to do with the degradation of the quality of
Schiff always looks like he's trying. He woke up in the middle of the night because he needs to pee. He went to the fridge and he's trying to stare at the label in the back,
to see.
to see what it is.
Is it expired?
Is it expired yet? And that's the eyes he's always doing. I mean, come on. Can we not get? Is it so hard to get someone that looks human up there, or do we have to keep putting up with Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, and Adam Schiff?
No.
Can we get someone with a normal human face?
No. Just
can we get someone who isn't wearing a mask of someone
fucking,
else?
No. It's 3 fucking Skeletors. It's three. You know what? It's 3 early '90s action figures.
Jake, we need you to play the entire Democratic Party. What do you think? We're going to put you up there. You have a beautiful face. People love you. People write in. They say they love you. I've been hearing it. They've been saying it. We need you to be the entire Democratic Party.
Man, it would be a waste to put me in that kind of position of
I would
power.
like to put you
ask dumb
in a
questions.
nice AOC style suit and marry you.
I would ask like dumb philosophical questions like, what does all of it matter?
Useless. All right, Travis, you're up. Fuck it.
So the other problem with this Q proof is that Congressman Schiff didn't open the impeachment inquiry in any sense. The individual responsible for opening the inquiry is obviously Speaker Pelosi, and she did that back in September. So, yeah, actually, I confronted this with someone, a Q follower in my mentions, who was trying to say that this was a Q proof. Is like, well, the Q is trying. If you're saying here that the Q is saying that Schiff opened the impeachment inquiry, then Q is wrong. And the response was, oh, but Schiff is the public face of it. So
wait, so you're now calling these confrontations when you answer people in your Twitter comments?
Yeah, it's
like
a battle. It's a battle royale.
Hell yeah.
Last man standing wins.
Yeah, hell yeah.
But so yeah, I suppose it is a Q proof if you just change the meaning of all the words in the drop.
Yeah, if English language isn't the English language, if mathematics are not mathematics, if reality isn't reality, then Q is 100% correct about everything.
If you change reality to whatever you prefer, then Q is real. I'll give you that.
Done. I mean, marketplace, baby. You go, you find, you buy, it's yours. You
Black
have your
Friday,
own one.
Black Friday sale on
Black
QAnon.
Friday sale on
People
the
are
marketplace of realities.
busting into the doors. They've got
It is very cheap, easy to use.
70% off your next delusion.
Yeah, they've got 100 QAnons just stacked at the front of the store, just ready to be taken. Right.
They all look shoddier than the last. Like the Chinese factory got like lazier and lazier as the models model numbers went up.
Right next to the smart bulbs.
Now, the second Q drop I want to call attention to is one which Q is criticized in the mainstream media, which is I think it kind of illustrates the kind of techniques that cult leaders typically use. And here's what the Q drop says.
What happens when 90% of the media is controlled/owned by 6 corporations? What happens when those same corporations are operated and controlled by a political ideology? What happens when the news is no longer free from bias? What happens when the news is no longer reliable and independent? What happens when the news is no longer trustworthy?
God, it's just so boring. What does happen? Please tell me what happens. Can you actually just give us answers? I'm sick of the question marks.
No answers, more questions. What happens when the news simply becomes an extension/arm of a political party?
God, could you imagine that? Oh,
Fact
wild.
becomes fiction. Fiction becomes fact. When does news become propaganda? Identity creation? How does the average person who is under constant financial stress by design find time to research and discern fact versus fiction? Majority of people more prone to believe someone in power sitting behind a big brand news name? Do people, human psyche, tend to follow the majority/mainstream viewpoint in fear of being isolated and or shunned?
I think there's actually something kind of really insidious going on here. And to be clear, there's nothing wrong with criticizing or being skeptical of the mainstream media. There actually are valid reasons to be concerned about media outlets being consolidated under the control of a handful of big corporations.
Yeah, there are valid reasons to march them all to Guantanamo. And
Of course, there's valid reasons to have your military tribunals.
go up those little wooden
saying.
stairs,
Right.
stand in a row.
But good faith critics of the mainstream media criticize it because they wish it would do better. Like they would imagine it would like do different things than it's doing so they could like it.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. Yeah, like good investigative journalism,
Yes.
speaking truth to power,
Yes,
not limiting your editorial line.
Those sorts of things. I wish you would do that. So that's not what Q is doing here.
Yeah.
So Q is fostering distrust in the mainstream media
That's right.
in order to encourage Q followers to turn away from all sources of information that aren't directly related to Q, which is a different kind of goal.
Yeah, what happens when people who are under financial stress don't have time to read qmap.pub every single day and match it with the Drudge Report and Fox News?
So I really interested in that last line, which says, do people tend to follow the majority/mainstream viewpoint in fear of being isolated and or shunned? So Q is telling followers to stop being afraid of being isolated and shunned because Q wants followers to be isolated and shunned by their friends and family. That's because people who are isolated and shunned are easier to manipulate and control. So Q here is engaging in a common thought reform technique commonly used by authoritarian regimes and cults, and this technique is known as milieu control. So Q is being actively knowingly abusive and harmful here. I mean, this is kind of partly why I kind of object when people say, oh, maybe Q was just some sort of trolling 14-year-old in his basement or something.
I mean, he could also be.
I guess, but there's something kind of sophisticated going on here.
Okay, yeah.
Is that there's something where the Q obviously understands that he needs to or they need to separate the basically all the people under Q's control from other family members and other sources of information to isolate them so they're more malleable and they are more easier to influence.
Yeah.
He must believe that he's losing control. There must be some kind of internal data, maybe that they're seeing that it's not. Maybe the hiatus, took a toll on their membership.
No, but this is
if you
exactly
will.
what the Democrats do. It's like, oh yeah, Trump is losing control. That's why his language is slipping, but it's been slipping for 3 years. Q was never not exactly like this.
Yeah, that's true. But he doesn't reference directly being like, be isolated from your loved ones, like so I can separate and dominate. Like I don't know. I agree with Travis. There's a little something more insidious here, which to me indicates, and this is just my opinion, but it indicates that they're worried about people looking at other sources of information. Perhaps that has to do with the upcoming IG report, that initial impressions are not as damning as Q followers would hope to believe.
That's true. That is a thing.
It's funny though. It's what's happening now. It's just like we're seeing the exact same thing play out that happened for the Mueller report. Like that now it's happening for this OIG report. Like I was looking at some of the blue checks on Twitter, and they're like, "Ha fucking Q-tards! Like what do you think now? Like you've been awfully quiet today. Like your precious OIG." And it's like you're doing the exact same thing that the Q people did during the Mueller. Oh, what do you say now? What do you say now? Blue check mark Mueller report not finding exactly what you think, and the Q people are going, "Oh well, that's not the full report. Let's wait for and the Mueller people were like, well, hold on, let's wait for the full report. It's just everybody's in a fucking time loop. It's driving me crazy.
Oh my God!
Oh wow!
All right.
Okay. Sorry.
Wow.
Sorry.
Destroying my ears over here. I'm sure the
my
listener
God.
appreciates it. Okay, now he's
sorry.
red. He's running his hands down his face.
Woo, lost control for a small moment.
But yeah,
Aren't you guys going to ask me how my vacation went?
Fuck you, dude. We got more important things to talk about, like different sides doing the
but
same,
that's because-
doing the same thing.
That's because you don't know that we hit an owl with a Cadillac Escalade.
What?
Yes.
You piece of shit. Do you know how precious those birds are?
Now wait a second. Let me tell you the story.
Okay.
So my French friend,
Let's call him Pierre.
Sure, Pierre is in town, and he heard that American cars are very cool, Cadillac, whatever. So they upgraded him to an Escalade, and he was like, "I'm going to do a road trip in like this cool American car."
Hell yeah, that's what
whatever.
you do in America. You get a better car than you can afford.
So it's night,
and you take
and
it for a little bit.
We're heading
and
back
give it
from eating some food, and a little like silver shape comes out the side of the underbrush, and wham! And we're like, holy shit, was that like a rabbit or something? And then we're like pulling into the driveway of the place, the cabins that we were staying at, and a wing just raises itself just at the end of the hood. And we're like, what the fuck? So then we stop the car right before we reach the cabin. I go around, and in the grill of the Escalade, there is just a bird's body, but like the head is inside the car, so you just see the whole wingspan open, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God, like we hit a bird or whatever.
Is it big though? How big is the wingspan?
Then it's like this big. What is that in
big
inches?
enough.
How many
It's
inches?
a
I
foot
don't
and a
know.
half, I would
Yeah,
say.
Whatever. Okay. So no, it's less than that. But yeah. So then the wings start moving. We're like, holy shit, it's fucking alive! It folds and goes into the grill, behind the grill. We're like, oh my fucking God. The grill, by the way, of an Escalade is a piece of shit. American cars are built like absolute shit now.
Yeah.
It's plastic. The entire fucking thing is plastic, including the chrome, and it breaks very easily. So I look into the grill and I see two eyes just looking back at me. And I'm like, oh, it's a fucking owl. And we were unable to reach this owl who was now in the grill. We obviously stopped the car and shit. And there's no way to remove the grill from the front. Like it's all like push screw, or not even screws, like push things, plastic, all plastic, whatever. Finally, we after 2 hours, we called the SPCA. We had them coming. We sawed a square, like a big ass square. Like we sawed through the front grill of this Cadillac Escalade
That he had rented? Oh my God.
He's fully covered. He's fully covered.
Right.
He was fine. But we sawed a perfect square in the front, and the SPCA came and she reached in and pulled out the cutest little owl, a screech owl. Is about the size of my hand. And the reason why I don't sound bad about it is because the SPCA took him in. He had no broken bones. He had a concussion, and he had some blood build up behind one eye. And the eye is getting better. It is now being moved to exterior area in the SPCA to do some exercise. It might hunt again. In fact,
updates about this owl?
Yes, I called the SPCA to get updates on the owl.
You're such a kind soul.
I also decided to try to adopt the owl. I had the idea that if the owl was going to be put down because of the fact that it wasn't going to be able to hunt, which was a possibility, it's not looking like it's going to happen. I was like, well, we're going to adopt the owl. I'm going to call it Moloch, and it's going to become the podcast. The podcast mascot.
God, that would be so. Can you imagine what
so
the cute
cute.
people would say if they were like,
they're going to lose their mind. They have an actual owl.
They actually have an owl in their studio.
Called Moloch. Exactly. So Moloch, it is in fact illegal to own wildlife like Moloch. I was told by the SPCA lady, who had a good laugh as well when I said that. But Moloch seems to be doing better, and hopefully Moloch will be hunting again soon. So
his depth. So they're worried about the eye because of his depth perception in terms of hunting. Okay.
They thought he might lose sight in one eye, and that would stop him from hunting and basically surviving.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So we'll see, man. I'll keep
don't
everyone updated about Moloch.
Don't they have a little place where they can just like feed him mice and stuff?
Yeah, the SPCA can't just like hold animals indefinitely, I think.
Well,
that's reserved for the government with humans.
They should change.
Anyways, I'll give you all updates on Moloch, and pray. Keep Moloch in your prayers, please.
Okay.
So what we're telling the audience is pray to Moloch. Very literally, this is coded language. Pray to Moloch, your owl god. Thank you.
John Solomon.
Today, we're going to be looking at the work of John Solomon, whose writing and commentary have arguably helped trigger the chain of events that led to Trump's impeachment inquiry. Solomon's columns were referenced in the whistleblower complaint, and Solomon has been mentioned multiple times during the impeachment hearings during this past week. Here is Republican Congressman Devin Nunes defending Solomon during those hearings.
Since the Democrats switched from Russia to Ukraine for their impeachment crusade, Solomon's reporting on Burisma, Hunter Biden, and Ukraine election meddling has become inconvenient for the Democratic narrative, and so the media is furiously smearing and libeling Solomon. In fact, the publication The Hill told its staff yesterday it would conduct a review of Solomon's Ukraine reporting. Coincidentally, the decision comes just 3 days after a Democrat on this committee told a Hill writer that she would stop speaking to The Hill because it had run Solomon's stories. and she urged the writer to relay her concerns to Hill's management. So now that Solomon's reporting is a problem for the Democrats, it's a problem for the media as well. I'd like to submit for the record John Solomon's October 31st story entitled Debunking Some of Ukraine's Scandal Myths About Biden and Election Interference. I encourage viewers today to read this story and draw your own conclusions about the evidence Solomon has gathered.
I suppose it's flattering for a journalist to have their work mentioned, in the halls of Congress, but I don't know, maybe not like this.
I love it.
Yeah.
As everything goes to trash, it matters less. Like, this could be a hearing about a legitimate journalist that people are pissed off because he blew the whistle on something.
Yeah.
Or it could be a complete smear merchant idiot that is talking crap, and it's almost impossible for the viewer to know the difference.
I have
depending
no
on your side.
reference point anymore.
Yeah, there's no reference point.
Everything is fake. Everything is real. I have no. I have reached peak.
See, this is right where we want you. We want you nicely tenderized because we're going to put you on a spit and we're going to twist you around a little bit and just eat little chunklets of you.
I guess I'm just ready to accept anything that seems like it could be right.
Oh, that is so.
That's wow.
That's so different than
That's such
you
a zen,
before.
open-minded. You're just accepting of all.
Yeah, you've got the beginner's mind.
Yeah, I'm in the intermediate class now where all timelines seem potentially
See, you as a listener,
real.
like, you're like, okay, I know stuff. So your bowl is full, so you can't receive anything from the master.
Yeah.
But Jake's bowl is empty. And that's a state of mind so that he's always receptive to new information. And it's always quality information. So
yeah, it's like when you've skimped out a little bit on the size of your Xbox hard drive. And when a new game comes along that you really want to play, you have to delete some older games that you maybe haven't been. So in my case, it's if there's an education or a piece of knowledge that I haven't used for a while, I'm gonna delete it to make space for this new and exciting piece of education that I haven't decided I don't like quite yet.
Q also obviously loves John Solomon and has for a while. In fact, Solomon has been referenced in 15 Q drops. The first mention from Q was all the way back in December 2017. That Q drop referenced both John Solomon and another reporter beloved by Fox News, Sarah Carter. And here's what it says.
Why are Sarah and John getting all the real scoops? Expand your thinking. Why are they now under protection? Q.
I love that he uses their first names like they're super casual. It almost sounds like like a fucking nursery rhyme, like
Sarah and John went up the hill to fetch a pail of children.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go a bit into Solomon's history. His main claims have been causing such a stir, and what I think that Solomon's role is in our info hellscape. So just a warning, we're going to get a bit into the weeds here and also probably mispronounce some Ukrainian names. So Solomon is unique amongst reporters loved by the far right in that he actually has solid mainstream credentials. Like, he started his career by working for the Associated Press for nearly 20 years. And while he was there, he did some undeniably good reporting. For example, Solomon led a team of Associated Press reporters to investigate the terrorist attacks of 9/11 and the government's missed opportunities to detect and prevent them. That work won him a Gremlin Award for journalism.
The Gremlin Award? That sounds great.
Solomon also exposed some outright lies about the preparation for Hurricane Katrina from President George W. Bush.
Yeah, because he's deep state.
Good point. In 2006, Solomon reported on a leaked videotape which revealed that Bush was informed that Katrina could breach levees and overwhelm rescuers, contradicting claims from Bush that they didn't anticipate that the levees would be breached. Now,
Solomon makes really great ski boots.
Now, this is not to say that his reporting has been without controversy. The most common accusation lobbed at Solomon is that he has a habit of omitting context that makes non-stories seem like huge scandals. For example, in 2006, Solomon reported that Senate Democratic leader Harry Reid accepted free ringside tickets from the Nevada Athletic Commission to 3 professional boxing matches while that state agency was trying to influence Senator Reid on federal regulations about boxing. The story was technically accurate, but the reporting failed to mention that just a few months after those boxing matches, Harry Reid allowed boxing regulation legislation to pass. This is legislation that the Nevada Athletic Commission openly opposed. And this was in line with Reid's long-stated support of more federal regulation of boxing.
So that's kind of a bad deal for them. They invited him, and they're like, this is good. He's coming. He likes
enjoying it.
boxing.
He's
and then,
send him more popcorn.
motherfucker, he didn't vote for What the fuck?
He was like, thanks for the boxing matches. This
just proves that Harry Reid has the memory of a goldfish, and he's unable to carry out the quid pro quo.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, like keeping an eye on lobbying and special interest is a good thing, but in this instance, there just wasn't much evidence of corrupt influence, and Solomon's reporting omitted important relevant details. So, a 2012 article in the Columbia Journalism Review about Solomon actually said this about him.
Solomon has a history of bending the truth to his storyline. As a reporter for the AP and the Washington Post, he dug up his share of genuine dirt, but he also was notorious for massaging facts to conjure phantom scandals. I love to massage facts to conjure phantoms.
So after Solomon left the Associated Press in 2007, he worked briefly as a national investigative correspondent for the Washington Post. In 2008, he accepted a position as the executive editor of the Washington Times.
Just shows you how this shit goes. I mean, the Washington Times is complete trash. The Post is reprehensible and probably, in the pocket of an intelligence agency. But the Washington Times reads like fucking Breitbart at this point.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, the interesting thing about the Times is that it's a paper that was founded and owned by the cult of the Unification Movement,
hell yeah.
which was founded by the Korean religious leader Sung Myung-moon.
Okay,
and
that's rude.
And he's claimed that he is the second coming of Christ.
Oh yeah.
While Solomon was at the Washington Times, he apparently helped modernize the style guide. For example, he stopped the paper's practice of just using the single word Hillary when referring to then Senator Hillary Clinton, and to stop putting the word marriage in quotes when using the expression gay marriage.
Oh, well, you got to take the victories when they come,
After this, he bounced around to a few different media outlets before joining The Hill as an executive vice president of digital video. Apparently, this was his official title. But of course, he also wrote a lot of investigative pieces for that publication. After Solomon joined The Hill, that publication's staffers started complaining that his reporting failed to tell the whole story. Many of these complaints were launched in reaction to a December 2017 report that read, "Exclusive, prominent lawyer sought donor cash for 2 Trump accusers." So the gist of this article is that prominent California lawyer Lisa Bloom worked to secure payments for women who, quote, made or considered making sexual misconduct allegations against Donald Trump during the final months of the 2016 presidential race. This article was treated like a bombshell on Fox News and elsewhere as proof that Trump's accusers were just in it for the cash.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, Solomon's article, the details in that article were technically accurate, but it failed to mention that accuser financing arrangements aren't a new or uncommon thing. To cite just one example, when Paula Jones filed a harassment lawsuit against Bill Clinton in 1994, she received funding from the Rutherford Institute. By omitting that context, Solomon's story cast Trump's accusers as money grubbers rather than possible victims of sexual assault who didn't have the resources themselves to get into a prolonged legal fight with the president. In May of 2018, The Hill editor-in-chief Bob Cusack announced that John Solomon's writings would no longer be considered part of the news side of the publication.
Effective immediately when he writes for us, it will be as an opinion contributor.
So the proof that opinion columns are just written by bad journalists.
Yeah.
If your standards fall enough, it's like we'll move you to the opinion column.
Yeah, it's like we don't necessarily want to completely black out the information that you've brought us, but we won't parade it around as total fact.
John Solomon will be sleeping on the couch, and we will not have any children together anymore.
So despite that title change, he continued to write so-called investigative pieces. He also continued to be introduced as a investigative reporter whenever he appeared on Fox News, which he does very frequently.
Yeah.
Solomon left The Hill in September under circumstances that neither he nor The Hill have fully described. So most of the recent controversy around John Solomon revolves around his reporting around Ukraine, specifically the U.S. About the U.S. ambassador to Ukraine, Marie Yovanovitch, and Hunter Biden, the son of Joe Biden, who works for the Ukrainian company Burisma.
And who hits that crack pipe like a king.
Yeah.
And has an illegitimate
yes, that's
child
right.
somewhere.
That's right. Hunter Biden
Just
was,
like Drake.
no, not just somewhere.
Just like Drake.
Yeah, Biden was in the news actually just this week for having a weak pull-out game. A court filing stated that a DNA test established that Hunter is the father of an Arkansas woman's baby. So, Mazel Tov, Grandpa Joe.
Oh my God, are you telling me he's the father of Chelsea Clinton? This is incredible.
I just took a DNA test. Turns out I'm 100% fucking dad's presidential run.
49 years old, man. You are 49 years old, Hunter. Get a vasectomy.
He's 49.
He's 49.
So what? So what if he likes to hit the pipe and bust inside? So what?
But it's like, dude.
Get your shit together.
Hits the pipe, lays the pipe, busts inside on a ride.
Here's the thing: is like he doesn't have to be in the public. Like he was getting his money. He was getting his Ukrainian money. He's busting nuts. His seed is potent. He's dumping loads into the four corners of the fucking universe.
He's dumping loads at motels near airports around the world.
He has no political opinions whatsoever. Like, there's no need for him to be in the public conversation whatsoever. And yet, here he is.
He does have political beliefs that if you try hard enough, you can be anyone you want to be. Right.
So the basic narrative that Solomon's columns allude to is really a grand George Soros conspiracy theory.
Nice.
And so he doesn't do all the kind of the dot connecting himself. He lets like Fox News hosts do that for him. Mm-hmm. But the broad narrative of his reporting basically goes like this. George Soros controls much of the foreign service of the State Department.
Strongly agree.
And wants to control Ukraine.
Also strongly agree.
As part of this effort, Soros puppets, such as Ambassador Yovanovitch, sought to squash corruption investigations in Ukraine that may have implicated Soros. Joe Biden also halted corruption efforts in Ukraine by working to oust prosecutor Viktor Shokin in order to protect his son's business interests. With help from the Democratic Party, Soros also helped supposed Ukrainian interference in the 2016 election by masterminding a federal investigation into Paul Manafort's illicit lobbying for a pro-Russian political party in Ukraine. I know. I said we were going to get to the weeds here.
We used to have cool scandals, man. That's all I have to say. Keep it fucking simple.
Yeah.
You had me at the raw dogging. Can't we make this about DNA and paternity tests?
I wish.
I want
scandals are
Jerry
so much
Springer.
more fun.
Yeah, I want anything Jerry Springer would greenlight. Jerry Springer would never do a show about this because it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
But we, on the other hand,
We
are
will
all
do it.
about it.
All right, so
We did it. We done it.
let's there's a lot going on there.
A lot.
So let's start with the claims about the raw dogger himself. So it's true that in 2014, Hunter Biden joined the board of an energy company called Burisma Holdings, which is owned by a Ukrainian oligarch. Biden had no apparent expertise in the field, but he had helped Burisma previously as a consultant with expertise in dealing with multinational regulations. Hunter was paid about $50,000 per month through accounts linked to Burisma. So
Hell yeah, get that money.
Get that money, Pino.
right, yes.
By the
all-
way, this is Pride and Prejudice. Like this entire, it's like a 800-page book that should have been 100 pages, and it's all about he did that to him and talked that to her and
I
did this,
know,
and it's all just a bunch of rich people who are uninteresting and
Yeah,
should not be
sorry.
allowed to rule over us at all.
Yeah.
But since they do, we have to talk about this bullshit.
That's fine. That's fine.
So right off the bat, obviously, the son of the vice president should not work for an international entity that has a stake in American foreign policy decisions.
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty clear.
Sure.
Hunter, while denying doing anything seriously unethical, even admitted that taking the job represented poor judgment on his part. State Department officials also said that it at very least created the appearance of a conflict of interest. So Noah's defending Hunter here.
You're not supposed to bust inside the Ukraine, Hunter. Just pull out.
Yeah, just pull out, go back to America, and fucking put it into a fucking tissue, man. Ball it up, throw it behind the bed. Maybe your dad finds it. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe you have a conversation about it. Very uncomfortable. Maybe you don't.
All right.
Maybe incredibly related to your own life.
No.
So to make things more complicated, while Hunter was doing this, Joe Biden, while he was vice president, took responsibility of pushing Ukraine's notoriously corrupt government to clean up his act. In December of 2015,
I love America cleaning up other people's acts.
I know. In December of 2015, Biden threatened to withhold $1 billion in U.S. loan guarantees if Ukraine's leaders did not dismiss the country's top prosecutor, Viktor Shokin. Shokin had been accused of turning a blind eye to corruption among the elite. Shokin was subsequently voted out by the Ukrainian parliament.
We're going to withhold money unless you rename your country Hunter Biden Presents the Ukraine.
It's like the 6th straight-to-DVD sequel.
Yeah.
Hunter Biden. The original movies were like Hunter Biden. And now it's like Hunter Biden Presents, a bunch of fucking no-names.
Now, all of this is further complicated by the fact that Shokin's office had oversight to any investigations into Burisma. Shokin later told John Solomon that before he was fired as prosecutor, he made specific plans for an investigation that
Included interrogations and other crime investigation procedures into all members of the executive board, including Hunter Biden.
But these specific plans, assuming they're real, were apparently not made public until John Solomon reported on them nearly 4 years later. In October, Ukraine's current chief prosecutor announced that his office would conduct a wide-ranging review of all previous cases involving Burisma. And just this past week, Reuters reported that he was widening the investigation to include suspicion of embezzling state funds. Also this week, MAGA and QAnon Twitter accounts started circulating claims that the president of Burisma was indicted. He was not. This claim, which was based on a misunderstanding of an article published on an obscure wire service called the Interfax Ukraine News Agency, is not true. So Solomon's reporting on this issue continued his habit of omitting important context. For example, Solomon notes correctly that when Biden joined Burisma, that company was under investigation by British officials for money laundering. Now, that's true, that British officials froze a London bank account that contained $23 million that allegedly belonged to Burisma's owner, Mykola Zlokovetsky. Again, I have no idea. how to
No,
pronounce
it's
his
pretty
name.
close.
It's close, yeah.
Zlochevsky.
Okay.
Zlochevsky.
That's the one.
That's it. That's how it is.
But Solomon failed to note that Shokin's office, the prosecutor, refused to provide documents needed in the investigation. And a British court in January ordered the officials to unfreeze the assets. So when you tell the whole story, it shows how Shokin, which is the prosecutor that Joe Biden pressured to dismiss, wasn't doing enough to root out Ukrainian corruption.
Okay, sure. Yeah,
Wait,
I honestly think this is
So let me get
everyone's
this-
working together to put a sleeper hold on our brains.
Yeah, so let me get this.
It's
Let me get this straight.
Yeah,
so,
sure.
So
Get it
okay,
straight,
so
baby.
Joe Biden's big boy
Yes.
goes to Ukraine. He gets a deal that he's underqualified for. But look, I mean, this is politics. They're in powerful places. He helped them with something before. It makes sense that they would be like, shit, yeah, you're connected to the fucking vice president. You helped us with some other shit. We'll put you on a retainer. That's just corrupt fucking capitalism as usual.
Yes, like standard normal corruption though.
And so, right.
Normal awesome corruption that we all love.
And so then this prosecutor is like, hey, I'm tasked with prosecuting all the corruption, and I'm gonna start with you, Joe, this company, fucking Burisma, and maybe even the vice president's son.
Yeah, keep in mind, corruption is a way to get people out of power.
Yes.
If you want to, for example, win an election like Bolsonaro did,
right?
By investigating quote unquote Lula through his own State Department thingy.
And so then Biden's like, yo, what's up? Like, you're investigating this company that, like, my son's attached to, but, like, you're not doing enough on real fucking corruption, so, like, you're out. This sounds like Hatfields and McCoys, just two fucking rich-ass families just being like, no, got money, give me the bags.
Yeah, it's a bunch of dim-witted adult children knocking into each other in a bouncing castle.
I read somewhere that maybe you get to this. Stop me if you do, but that the tricky thing is that the investigation that Shokin launched into Burisma was like over and done for like a while before Biden was like, hey dude, you're not doing enough like on this other, like on these other corruption shit. Like that the two events are kind of like completely unrelated, but because it's the same players, they pretend like it's happening all of the. But isn't that all journal? I mean, isn't that's what's happening with the fucking like liberals too? Like CNN is they're omitting certain things to make everything sound. I mean, isn't this just what we've become, Travis?
Listen,
we just in between the truth and the lie?
Do you remember how we used to have a social safety net?
Yes.
Okay, so now it's a new net. It's a net created from the vast amount of investigations that people are doing against each other.
Okay.
And when you inevitably run out of money because you caught a cold or something,
yeah,
you fall into that net, and then you get wrapped in it. And then a spider comes along and sucks your fucking blood until you're dry. And that blood is used to power more of these investigations. It's a way to make society function, man. Don't question it. Just enjoy the cocoon.
That is starting to make sense.
Enjoy the cocoon.
The warm, sticky white.
That's right. You're going to be covered in warm, sticky white
ropes.
That's right. Ropes. Lots of ropes shot all over you, wrapped like a cocoon.
Another issue with the theory that Joe Biden was being corrupt and pushing for Shokin's ouster is that he wasn't the only person to push for Shokin to basically out of office. Anti-corruption groups inside of Ukraine, European diplomats, and the International Monetary Fund also complained that Shokin wasn't doing enough to prosecute corruption and wanted to replace him. So if firing Shokin was a corrupt move by Biden, you'd have to believe that somehow he got the U.S. State Department, anti-corruption officials in Ukraine, and the international community all to get on board with his corrupt scheme to help his obnoxious fail son. You know?
Well, I mean, that sounds like a rich dad to me, kind of, in some ways. Like, you know, it just seems like my boy.
That's Joe Biden sounds incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
This is a bit like when your kids get rowdy in the back and they're blaming each other. What you want to do is you want to put your hand back and just slap across the entire row, and then just fucking let them sort it out.
Another issue is that Yuri Lutsenko, another prosecutor general of the Ukraine, has specifically denied that Hunter Biden was the subject of any investigation. Lutsenko also said this in an interview with Bloomberg in May of 2019.
Hunter Biden did not violate any Ukrainian laws. At least as of now, we do not see any wrongdoing. A company can pay however much it wants to its board.
Now, please, Baba Yaga, let me go.
Now, please, unwrap your hands from my neck.
So, despite the fact that Solomon has used Lutsenko as a source for several reports, he never mentioned Lutsenko's very specific denial, which seems relevant if you're going to, if you're claim that you're investigating this matter.
Yeah.
So obviously, I would take the stance that while Hunter Biden obviously parlayed his name into a cushy gig, the accusation of Joe Biden corruptly using U.S. foreign policy to advance Hunter's business interests or shield him from prosecution isn't backed up by anything Joe Biden actually did.
Yeah, they sucked at. They didn't do anything for Ukraine. Like,
No.
they did nothing for them. Like, even when Ukraine was like getting invaded by Russia, like the United States. I mean, the Obama/Biden administration was like, yeah, we still don't want to send you guys weapons. Like, there was no quid pro quo, and even if you could be like, and look, this is me, guys. Like, I fucking hate Joe Biden, and I hate his boy. I don't hate his boy as much as because I mean, look, I identify. I've smoked crack before by accident, and
What? That's right.
I'm lying.
I do remember this.
Mom and Dad, I'm lying.
No, he said it on other podcasts.
No, I
She
didn't.
probably already heard it.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did say that.
It was an accident. But like, yeah, I mean, if you're looking for, okay, well, they hooked up Joe Biden's kid with, now what did Joe Biden do for them? Absolutely nothing. I mean, it's what the Republicans are saying about Trump being like, well, he didn't do anything. He didn't give Ukraine anything. You know, it's all a fucking wash.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Another focus of John Solomon's reporting is the U.S. ambassador to Ukraine, Marie Yovanovitch. According to an interview that Solomon conducted with Lysenko, Yovanovitch gave the Ukrainian prosecutor a list of people to not prosecute during their first meeting. Here's what Lysenko said.
Unfortunately, from the first meeting with the U.S. ambassador in Kiev, Yovanovitch gave me a list of people who we should not prosecute. My response of that is it is inadmissible. Nobody in this country, neither our president, nor our parliament, nor our ambassador, will stop me from prosecuting whether there is a crime.
It must be amazing for all these other countries to deal with America's bullshit. Because it's like, it's like, guys, we all do corruption, but like, you need to fucking leave us alone.
Yeah, just we don't fuck with your guys' corruption.
Shut the fuck up. This is really boring stuff too.
This is like corrupt.
This is like the poor people having to pay attention to the rich people's problems.
Yeah, it's
we
like,
don't fucking care.
Yeah,
Shut up.
This is a Judd Apatow movie. This is trying to get me to care about 40-somethings who live in the fucking suburbs who are, stressed out because they can't buy the car that they want.
Yeah, and they're all small potatoes anyways compared to the Mercers, the Rupert Murdochs of the world. Like, let's talk about the big boys. Like, it's like, we're talking in millions? Pfft,
it's like
America. Petty cash.
It's like America, all you do is perpetrate crimes in other countries. Like, you can't then come in and be like, hey, guys, you got to clean up all these crimes. Like, we're the good guys. It's totally hypocritical.
Yes, well, America likes to take a shit on the sidewalk, step in it, and then blame the person walking at the same time. Your dog took this shit. Sir, I watched you pull down your pants and do that shit yourself.
The State Department responded to Lysenko's claims by calling them an outright fabrication. He later refined his story to say that he wasn't actually given a physical list. In an interview with the Ukrainian publication The Babel, Lysenko claims that Yovanovitch complained about a criminal case of a particular anti-corruption figure and claimed that it undermined anti-corruption efforts, to which Lysenko responded by taking a piece of paper and mockingly saying,
"Give me a list of inviolable persons."
To which the ambassador responded, "You misunderstood me." He also claims that he has a witness to this conversation, but
He says that he is ready to confirm, but I do not see the point.
So, full disclosure, I am relying on Google Translate to understand the content of this published interview. It was quite literally a Ukrainian publication.
Oh, big tech.
Oh, the soup is on my head again for supper.
But so when reporting on this story, I feel like it would be relevant to mention that Lysenko changed his story about the alleged do not prosecute list and that there was an alleged witness who could confirm the changed story but doesn't confirm it for some reason. But, John Solomon's reporting doesn't do that.
Yeah, this is like when you're watching a puppet show and the two puppet operators get into a fight backstage. Right. It's like, come on, guys, settle down, man. We want the show to continue.
Interesting. Now, according to a recent story from ProPublica, the individual who arranged the interview between John Solomon and Lysenko was Lev Parnas.
Oh.
And Lev Parnas is a Soviet-born businessman, most famous for being a Rudy Giuliani associate, who last month was arrested and charged with planning to direct funds from a foreign government to U.S. politicians while trying to influence U.S.-Ukraine relations. In fact, Lev Parnas watched the interview between Solomon and Lusenko live from inside the control room of the Hills TV studio. Lev Parnas also claimed earlier this month that he flew to Kiev to tell the Ukrainian government that it had to announce an investigation into Joe and Hunter Biden, or else Vice President Mike Pence would not attend the swearing-in of the new Ukrainian president, and the United States would freeze aid. Now, this claim is, of course, unconfirmed. This is what Parnas, who is, an alleged criminal, is saying. But
Jesus
let's say,
What a fucking mess.
I know.
Oh, God. Oh, God.
I know.
And it's just what a mess. And they're impeaching all of us. Just what a fucking
I know. But it certainly suggests that Parnas might have had a particular agenda in arranging the interview between Lusenko and Solomon. All right. So what about the so-called Ukrainian meddling, which is sort of something that's been accused in Solomon columns? Accusations of Ukraine meddling actually predate sort of Solomon talking about it. They mostly spring from a January 2017 Politico article headlined "Ukrainian Efforts to Sabotage Trump Backfire." It reported that Ukrainian government officials tried to help Hillary Clinton and undermine Trump by publicly questioning his fitness for office, and that Ukrainian-American operative who was consulting for the Democratic National Committee met with top officials in the Ukrainian embassy in Washington in an effort to expose ties between Trump top campaign aide Paul Manafort and Russia. So that article mostly focuses on the Ukrainian-American Democratic operative Alexandra Chalupa.
Oh, yes. Very tasty.
Here she is. She's back.
I love to
She's
eat
a big
chalupa.
Spygate player. This is
Oh,
like
yeah?
this is who Dan Bongino and all those guys like. They're so convinced that Chalupa is this like fucking like insider operative like for Hillary who knew that there was dirt on Manafort and basically set in motion the steps ultimately leading to the United States launching an investigation into the Trump campaign.
Alexandra Lampshade investigates Grigor Krachevich in the third edition of Kill Me.
So Chalupa began looking into Trump campaign official Paul Manafort's ties to Ukrainian politician Viktor Yovanovitch, who was president from 2010 to 2014. Chalupa was hired as a consultant to the Democratic National Committee during the 2016 campaign to help mobilize ethnic communities. This is apparently very relevant. She was not a sort of researcher. She wasn't an operative. She was designed to help. She was a get-out-the-vote operative. She left the DNC in July of 2016. She continued her research into Manafort on her own, sometimes with the help of Ukrainian embassy officials, and she said that she sometimes shared her findings with officials at the DNC and Clinton's campaign, but former Clinton campaign officials claimed that they never received information from Chalupa. So we have differing accounts on that particular matter. What those embassy officials did is unclear. Chalupa told Politico that officials at the Ukrainian embassy were helpful in providing guidance in response to her questions, and that the embassy also worked with reporters researching Trump, Manafort, and Russia. A top embassy official denied working with reporters or with Chalupa on issues related to Trump or Manafort, but a former embassy officer said that he was instructed to help Chalupa with her research. I'm sorry for this. I know this is like, oh, he said, she said, this said, this, because this is the info hellscape. What's so interesting about all this stuff is it's such a microcosmos of like the entire political conversation, because everything that we get are these kind of little half-truths, or he said this one thing that then somebody else decided that was a fact and based their new sort of theory based on this thing that could
may have been true or not.
Yeah.
They've decided that this was a fact. And so what they're doing, what everybody is doing, is they're building, and maybe this is how it's always been, and it's just it's just now been thrust out into the public because we have the internet, because we can look back and cross-reference it, because we can be citizen researchers, computer warriors. Now we're. I don't know where I was going with that.
You know what? By the end of this episode, I am done. I'm all in on QAnon. Fuck it. That's it.
It's
it's
simpler.
an easier,
It's easier.
better.
See, Julian, it's
more interesting.
It's more interesting. The lore is
I
better.
know.
There's
No, you were right, Jake. You were
there's
right.
a cooler end game.
Once again, you were right.
The end game is a little bit cooler.
Yeah, a lot bit cooler.
A lot bit cooler because it's the overthrowing of a satanic government, as opposed to like now the end game is like we go back to politicians fucking us over without us knowing about it, as opposed to politicians telling us they're going to fuck us over and then doing it.
Travis views Tom Clancy's impeachment proceedings.
So DNC officials denied that they coordinated with Chalupa on opposition research, and she was not a researcher for the DNC, and the DNC did not incorporate her findings about Manafort according to that Politico article. The DNC obviously had been looking into Trump and his ties to Russia long before Chalupa alerted them, not that it did them any good. Chalupa did work with some embassy officials. In fact, Solomon actually got an interesting statement from the Ukrainian embassy in Washington. And here it is.
The embassy got to know Ms. Chalupa because of her engagement with Ukrainian and other diasporas in Washington, D.C., and not in her DNC capacity. We have learned about her DNC involvement later. We were surprised to see Alexandra's interest in Mr. Paul Manafort's case. It was her own cause. The embassy representatives unambiguously refused to get involved in any way, as we were convinced that this is strictly a U.S. domestic matter. No documents related to Trump campaign or any individuals involved in the campaign have been passed to Ms. Chalupa or the DNC, neither from the embassy nor via the embassy. No documents exchanged and was even discussed. It's like the fucking Shakespeare, like, thou dost protest too much. Never at any point did we even lay eyes on this woman. I swear to God. All ideas floated by Alexandria were related to approaching a member of Congress with a purpose to initiate hearings on Paul Manafort or letting an investigative journalist ask President Poroshenko a question about Mr. Manafort during his public talk in Washington, D.C. We said no to all.
Fantastic.
We did not touch. We do no Russia. You touch Russia. Russia don't touch you.
Interestingly, Senator Chuck Grassley sent a letter to the Department of Justice asking for an investigation into Ukrainian meddling in 2017 after that Politico article.
Okay.
He also sent a follow-up letter to William Barr asking again for an investigation in September of 2019. And to date, there isn't really any evidence that Trump's Justice Department has responded or opened up an investigation into alleged Ukrainian interference or collusion. So if Ukrainian meddling is a big deal, then the DOJ isn't acting like it.
Let's talk about George Soros, guys, because this, I need
sorry.
someone to
All right,
blame
yeah.
for all of
Sorry.
this. Can we please move on to blaming somebody?
All right.
Find that man, blame him.
Fine, we'll get into George Soros. So the evidence that Soros is the hidden hand in Ukraine mostly focuses on a Ukrainian group called the Anti-Corruption Action Center. In 2018, the Anti-Corruption Action Center received roughly 17% of its funding through 2018 from Soros's Open Society Foundations. So,
It's just good to rely on the money of the rich to just fund everything, really. Let's just let them keep accumulating, and then they can put the money where they're smart. They know how to spend it. It's like Bill Gates. He knows how to spend that money. What do you mean a human being shouldn't have billions and billions of dollars? Let him spend it smartly with his big brain that they made a Netflix documentary about.
Yeah.
So shortly before the prosecutor Lysenko took office, the Prosecutor General's office was investigating whether $4.4 million in U.S. aid had been misused by various recipients, including the Anti-Corruption Action Center. As Solomon framed the issue in The Hill, the supposed do not prosecute list was an Obama administration effort to protect the Anti-Corruption Action Center and therefore protect Soros.
He needs an aura of protection.
The State Department official George Kent told the Prosecutor General's office in a letter that the United States wasn't worried that his grant money had been misused and didn't see any grounds for the investigation of the Anti-Corruption Action Center. So Solomon portrayed Kent's letter to the U.S. Embassy as meddling in Ukrainian law enforcement matters, but Kent dismissed this view in a closed-door testimony to Congress last month. The probe into the Anti-Corruption Action Center was later dropped due to lack of evidence. There's also references by Solomon to a so-called black ledger, which listed secret payments to Manafort for off-the-books consulting work related to Ukraine. He implied that the black ledger was fake as part of some sort of smear campaign to hurt Manafort and therefore Trump, but parts of it have been verified by the Associated Press and other outlets. Also, during Manafort's trial, his defense attorneys never claimed that this ledger was fake, which seems to be a good defense if he was innocent of these sorts of things.
Right.
Some have also tried to connect the release of the Black Ledger to the Anti-Corruption Action Center, but that organization did not produce the information and they weren't responsible for publicizing the document. That was the work of the director of National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine, Artem Sintnik, and a former member of the Ukrainian parliament, Serhiy Lysenko. And Lysenko wrote this in a column for the Washington Post.
My desire to expose Manafort's doings was motivated by the desire for justice. Neither Hillary Clinton, nor Joe Biden, nor John Podesta, nor George Soros asked me to publish the information from the Black Ledger.
The real Black Ledger is the Epstein Ledger. Do not forget Epstein.
But this kind of leaves us with a question. So how did John Solomon get all these sources and information? Well, it turns out that Solomon has a source very close to Trump, Rudy Giuliani. Yes, that's right. The wellspring of John Solomon's columns on Ukraine is America's mayor himself. So what happened was that Giuliani did his own personal investigation to dig up dirt on Biden and find evidence of Ukrainian collusion with Democrats. The result of those efforts was put into a packet of documents and interviews. In March, Giuliani sent that packet to both the State Department and John Solomon. Giuliani said that he received a phone call shortly thereafter from Secretary of State Pompeo, who told Giuliani that he would refer the documents for investigation. The only reason that we know about this packet is that the copy that Giuliani sent to the State Department was eventually given to Congress as part of the impeachment inquiry, and of course it was leaked to various media organizations. Mm-hmm. Earlier this week, Giuliani actually talked about pushing Solomon to push out that information on Glenn Beck's show.
I went to John Solomon, and John had been working on it before me.
Yes.
And I said to John, I think you should take the lead, and we should put this all in the newspapers, because if I go to the Justice Department now, they're going to say Trump is forcing the Justice Department to do it.
Yeah.
Well, let's put the darn thing out, and let's see if any of these crooked media people will follow up on a proven case of bribery.
Also in March, the same month that Giuliani sent that packet, Solomon began publishing dozens of columns over the course of the next several months aimed at discrediting the Russia investigation and negatively tying the Democrats to Ukraine. The first column was called As Russia Collusion Fades, Ukrainian Plot to Help Clinton Emerges. According to a memo obtained by Politico, The Hill's editor-in-chief has announced a review of John Solomon's work.
Because of our dedication to accurate, nonpartisan reporting and standards, we are reviewing, updating, annotating, and when appropriate, correcting any opinion pieces referenced during the ongoing congressional inquiry.
Here's my broad theory about how this whole shit show went down. So Rudy, he went to find dirt on Biden and discredit the Russia investigation so Trump can win re-election and maybe pardon everyone who got slapped with a felony conviction because of Mueller, like Manafort and Stone, for example.
Right.
So Rudy, with assistance from his corrupt friend Lev Parnas, digs up what he can, sends that information to Secretary of State Pompeo, so the White House can act on it, but also John Solomon, so Solomon can get those claims circulating in the media. Mm-hmm. John Solomon then appears on Fox News to push those claims from Rudy's packet, and since Trump is a Fox News grandpa, he gets red-pilled while watching Solomon on Hannity spewing the bullshit information that Giuliani circulated trying to help Trump. And so the circle of brainworms is complete.
They're all pilling each other, okay?
Yeah.
Because Rudy's getting that shit from what the originally, and I know because I was fucking tracking this shit in the chans. What this really started is that it came from the distrust in Ukraine, and I believe I'm right here, came from the idea that Christopher Steele's dossier, that a lot of the information that he got from there was from Ukrainian officials who were, I don't know if any of that's true or not, but that was the initial, oh, well, the DNC is colluding with Ukraine because they're paying for essentially opposition resource that's from a foreign government. They claimed that because CrowdStrike, the company that analyzed the server and sent its analysis over to the intelligence communities. The owner had a Russia he's an American, but he was like Ukrainian born or had a Ukrainian name or had family in there, and so it's just like they're all like Giuliani's getting little pieces of this because he's going on the Donald. I'm swear to God, this is what I think happens. I think these guys have no place to fucking hang because everybody hates them. So when they want to surf, they go to the Donald or they go to Breitbart and they pick up these little pieces of misinformation. They go, oh, well, maybe there is something to that. They get pilled on their own shit, but because they're not a fucking internet researcher and they actually have government resources and money on them, they actually go and try to find this shit. They find half-truths, stuff that they could twist and maybe say, and they pill somebody else who then pills somebody else.
Yes,
and
they're just tadpoles floating in the tepid, shitty, stagnant pool of information that we have like literally old white men pissing into from the fucking side.
Celebrity politicians, they're just like us.
They're also drinking the piss of each other.
It's just, oh God, what a fucking...
It is. It's exhausting.
It's exhausting.
Because it really, I think that we're all just kind of like us as the sort of like info consumer. We're all just sort of like pawns in sort of the info wars between giant governments and giant media corporations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the almost like part of the goal is just bombard our senses until everything's white noise.
But in a way, QAnon
is
is right because if as consumers, we can potentially pill a dumbass politician because they're all just trawling online as well.
Right. I mean,
so,
evidence.
But the problem is that the way we pill the politicians is based on like older bullshit that we were fed by the system in the first place. So now the system is just drinking its own reheated piss from like years ago. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's like filtering it through like a snake skin on a small raft.
Definitely a thing.
And
small raft.
Yeah, because the snake skin can.
You have a snake skin out in the middle of the ocean on a raft.
And then you pick up the glass of filtered piss and you drink it.
You have a glass. You just have a glass out
cup.
There. Oh, a nice cup.
And then
How convenient.
And then you continue the search for dry land.
How convenient. You open the minibar and
maybe there's a girl. Maybe there's a girl with a map tattooed on her back.
Wow,
leading you to dry land.
Incredible! You have a girl on the raft. Yeah.
Maybe you've even adapted and you have gills, allowing you to swim underwater.
I'm gonna ride you like a raft, and I'm gonna leave you out there.
Okay, I like it.
There was a poll released just last month from the firm USA Facts, and it found that 47% of Americans believe it's difficult to know whether the information they encounter is true. And about 60% of Americans say that they regularly see conflicting reports about the same set of facts from different sources.
Bizarre.
So this is a problem. I don't know what the solution is, but yeah, it's bad. I don't know. It's like I spent an incredible amount of time. Like John Solomon is very difficult to fact check because like the shit that he writes isn't inaccurate. Like he he reports things that are true, but again, you have to like do extra research in order to put it in proper context
to understand it.
Yeah, to understand it. Like who has time to do that?
Yeah.
I wasted days on this bullshit.
I'm sure. Because you see a claim, and then you go, oh, okay, I'll check that, and then you find two other articles where one person says the claim is true, another person says the claim is true, but with this caveat, and then another person says it never happened at all, and it's just like this is why I'm gonna take a little minute here.
Oh my God,
this is why
Go off, King.
This is why I fucking can't stand Seth Abramson. Let's
my
get
God.
right to
Again?
it.
Still
this
on
is
this
why
guy?
I can't stand because
we're sick of hearing of your ex.
I know. I'm sick of hearing it too. I hate myself. I hate that I have an alt where I go and I just look at this shit and it fuels the rage. But this is what drives me nuts is because he's like, I'm the best because all my fact checking is from mainstream media reporting or all of it. And I'm like, but dude, you're essentially creating a narrative off articles that we have no idea if they're real. Like you're creating, that's like me saying, Julian and Travis are in a domestic partnership, okay? And then somebody comes along and says, "Well, Travis is the dad in the domestic partnership," right?
That's true.
And oh, well, I
You're
guess
the child. You're just describing your parents, Jake.
And
It's a beautiful day.
you know,
Thank you for calling us mom and dad, finally.
well, hold on. But then somebody goes and says, I think I'm going to write an article that says Julian's the dad. And then somebody goes and writes a theory based on the fact that you're the dad when you're really not. And you never were.
Are we still on the raft or where are we?
No, we've found land at this point.
Yeah, good. This is good.
But
this
it just,
is good.
yeah, I mean, it sucks. I mean, every time I read something, I'm like, that sounds like it could be interesting. I have no idea how to know if any of this is real.
That's why you should only read qmap.pub. Only and exclusively.
I agree. I told you a year and a half ago, I said, dude,
you're
I'm
all in.
I'm all in on QAnon.
At the time, you were all in because you enjoyed the information, but I'm all in because I'm tired.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm fucking tired.
They won. They finally worked
won.
us down enough.
Put it
we're
in my
ready.
mouth.
Yeah,
I'm
ready.
Put the pacifier in my mouth. I'll take qmap.pub pacifier. I'll stuff it in my gullet.
Yeah.
I'll shut the fuck up and I'll suck.
qmap.pub, please put me in diapers. Feed me.
Absolutely.
Feed me from a warm bottle.
Mama.
It's
Q
better.
mama.
It
Q
is.
mama.pub.
I guess it's more exciting to see political enemies executed in Guantanamo Bay than it is to just question what's real or not.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying anyone listed in any of these things, just execute all of them so we don't have to hear about this stuff anymore.
All right. Well,
I'm just saying.
All right. I could get on board with that. I hear what
There
you're
we
saying.
go. See,
all right.
See, Travis is only ever on board when I call for the death of everybody because he's such a profound nihilist that finally aligns with his level of anger.
Yeah, it'll be like fucking Lord of the Flies,
Yeah,
and we'll
yeah.
sit around this table, we'll pass a conch around.
Yeah, Travis is just pissed off that the genocide is targeted when I do it.
Yeah.
He's like,
Yes, just
come on now.
Equal opportunity. Just everyone.
Yeah.
Equal executions.
Yeah, we'll have to take off and nuke it from space. It's the only way to be sure.
The only way.
It's the only
It's
way
the
to be
only
sure.
way.
Yeah, honestly, my big beef with QAnon
Yeah.
is that Trump is spared.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's get an orbital weapon. Let's put a qmap.pub decal on it, and let's
You
nuke
never
ourselves.
know. There could be a day where they turn on Daddy Trump and that they believe that the real, that it's like it's been Flynn all along and actually Trump was manipulated by that they had this on him. I mean, who knows? There's so many plot twists. It could go fucking anywhere.
Beautiful stuff. Go on, Travis. Go on, Travis. You got to keep going because
Please,
otherwise we're going to get mired up in this fucking
How
endless...
long is this episode? I bet
You know what?
It's never going to end.
I
It's
feel
never
like
going to end.
it's already a 2-hour
I
episode.
think, listen, I've
be
said
2
my
hours.
bit, but I think that we have it's an exclusive on QAnon Anonymous. We have an unpublished column from John Solomon himself
Holy
that you've
shit.
acquired, Jake.
How do you keep finding lost stuff like
It
this?
feels redundant at this point after all of the stuff, but like, yeah, this was an article I found on the Wayback Machine. Hill had published it for like a couple of seconds before clearly they had like the foresight to take it down. And but I got screen grabs of it. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I can verify it. It looks like a screen grab what he has here in the document, so it has to be.
Yeah,
You know?
I mean,
I don't until they develop a way to fake these. It has to be true.
Yeah, so Yeah, I've got this. I'll read this kind of lost John Solomon article for you guys because I think it's pretty interesting. So the headline is, new findings indicate DNC collusion was an interdimensional scandal.
Oh, shit.
This is by John Solomon, 10/15/19. Views expressed by contributors are their own and not the view of the Hill. So here we go. It now appears more than ever the vast lengths to which Hillary Clinton and the DNC went to prevent Donald Trump from becoming the 45th president of the United States. Archaeologists working in the Giza Desert have uncovered ancient hieroglyphics that suggested Clinton and her staff were part of a massive plot that spanned thousands of years and stretched halfway across the globe. This isn't the first time Clinton and her team have been implicated in potential criminal activity in an effort to undermine then-candidate Donald Trump's 2016 presidential campaign. She and the DNC have been accused by both the president and high-ranking members of his administration to have worked alongside Ukrainian officials to unearth damning information on members of Mr. Trump's campaign team. However, with this new information coming to light, it now seems Hillary Clinton also may have colluded with an ancient Egyptian race to make sure that large amounts of dirt on then unborn candidate Donald Trump trickled down for generations in an effort to rig the 2016 election. Early yesterday morning, 2 archaeologists on an unrelated dig discovered what some are calling the Lost Tomb. In it, they claim, are never-before-seen hieroglyphs that could present a problem for Clinton and the DNC in Inspector General Horowitz's forthcoming report. Although the father and son team didn't give their names, they were more than willing to talk about both this discovery and other unrelated discoveries.
Damn.
They claimed that 7 months ago, their internet provider had accidentally upgraded their connection speeds.
Yeah.
They claimed that 7 months ago, their internet provider had accidentally upgraded their connection speed to well over the standard 100 megabytes per second. The 2 archaeologists explained that after experiencing unprecedented download speeds, they had embarked on an expedition to unearth ancient giants from the Giza Desert and stumbled upon the tomb by mistake.
Yeah.
In an interview, they expressed to me that they believe a giant had been guarding this particular tomb and suspect a team of less than 10 highly trained operatives defeated him in an effort to gain access to the secrets and potential powers of the tomb.
Yeah.
Congressman Devin Nunes has called on the House to subpoena both Hillary Clinton as well as former campaign chair Debbie Wasserman Schultz to find out exactly how crude renditions of both women ended up painted in a forgotten tomb sealed for thousands and thousands of years.
Yeah.
Pictures from inside the tomb reveal various anti-Trump retail products, such as an oversized balloon depicting the president as a large, fussy child, and bathroom tissue with the president's face printed on it. While Democrats have argued that the items could have easily been placed at the scene and that time travel isn't possible yet, the senior archaeologist suggested a different theory. That the DNC brought these items through some type of Stargate thousands of years into the past to begin a vicious smear campaign spanning the centuries leading up to the 2016 election. He went on to say that the Democrats had been traveling back in time over and over again, trying to change the results of the fateful election, but much to their disappointment, they've continued to fail every single time. The man suggests that enlisting the help of a mighty pharaoh seemed to be a last-ditch effort by the Democrats to either erase Donald Trump from our current timeline completely, or at the very least, hope that centuries of bad PR would be enough to sway independent voters. Earlier this afternoon, Senator Lindsey Graham called upon past and current members of the DNC to testify before the Senate regarding whether any of their actions while traveling through time had any repercussions on this particular timeline. Sources familiar with the matter say Graham is also seeking testimony from a reptilian named Bargalith, who some say is prepared to testify that a volunteer staffer is responsible for starting a chain of, quote, grave events in Bargalith's Dimensions timeline. Republicans were quick to blame tragedies like 9/11, Pearl Harbor, and the Northridge earthquake on careless DNC staffers who may have accidentally moved something or touched an animal they weren't supposed to, thus disrupting the timeline indefinitely. The story has spread like wildfire to the internet message boards, where some users are claiming certain members of the DNC set up shop at various places throughout history, forming a multi-dimensional deep state that had potential influence at significant moments in our history as a species. While there isn't a lot of evidence to support many of their claims, believers are adamant that they've spotted members of Clinton's campaign team in old newspapers, history books, and even as background in old films. Further investigation seemed to partially verify that a man bearing a striking resemblance to Tony Podesta could be seen on the steps of the famous scene of Battleship Potemkin. There's been fervent discussion over where the Democrats' sophisticated technology comes from. Various groups on the message boards believe that secret military weaponry is involved, while others believe the technology comes from a friendly alien species. However, the senior archaeologist explained passionately to me that in reality, it was the Democrats' access to incredibly high-speed internet that has allowed them to transcend time and space. He admitted that he and his boy had received a tiny taste of what the wealthy elite must have access to on an exponential level, and it, quote, expanded my mind in ways we had never imagined. According to his theory, when surfing the World Wide Web at unhindered speeds, users were able to see all knowledge as it exists at once, therefore allowing them to pinpoint specific reference points throughout all known existence. As of this writing, the father/son team was getting very slow bandwidth, both within the tomb itself as well as in their home. Both the archaeologists who made the initial discovery said that as of this point, neither has gained any sort of special abilities from entering the lost tomb. And while they admit they are disappointed, they are happy to be contributing to the inevitable downfall of the Democratic National Committee.
Incredible stuff, man.
It says, John Solomon is an award-winning investigative journalist.
Yeah, we don't care. We don't care about his stupid career.
Yeah, so fascinating
Yeah,
stuff. I can see why they
stunning.
kind of dropped. I can see
Yeah.
why they dropped it probably.
My
but
God, you think that maybe actually the time-traveling DNC might have had a hand in squashing this. This is incredible stuff.
Yeah.
who's to know that they're not manipulating this timeline even as we speak right now?
Yeah, I feel like I can see some echoes of
Whispering in
previous-
Julian's ear to kick me off of the show and replace me with somebody of higher social media worth.
Get rid of him, boy. He's useless.
He's useless.
He's useless, boy.
He's useless. I've discovered the cup.
He's drinking his own urine again, boy.
On a raft.
You've been listening to the QAnon Anonymous podcast. If you like the show, you can support us and get a second weekly episode for just $5 a month. This will also get you access to our archive of premium episodes. We do not run any advertising and we want to keep it that way, so head to patreon.com/QAnon Anonymous and subscribe. Thank you so much for doing that. You should also come and watch our first live show in Los Angeles on Saturday, February 8th. Tickets are available at tickets.QAnonAnonymous.com. You can join us to chat and hang out with listeners at discord.QAnonAnonymous.com, and you can get t-shirts, mugs, including one with JFK Jr. and a LGBTQ deep state one. All of that stuff is available at merch.QAnonAnonymous.com.
Listener, until next week, may the deep dish bless you and keep you.
It's not a conspiracy, it's fact.
And now, today's auto cue.
When the true value of a people's children is reduced to their access to the capital and credit controlled by their parents, and the communities who value their children instead as our only chance for an afterlife, the people are deprived of our afterlife. I return to the doomsday scenario of Samuel Scheffler. Quote, "If by the afterlife," he writes, "we mean the continuation of human life on Earth after our own deaths, then it seems difficult to avoid the conclusion that in some significant respects, the existence of the afterlife matters more to us than our own continued existence. Unlike Morrison's enslaved mother Sete, who knowingly sacrificed her child to save her from enslavement, we have unknowingly sacrificed our children in order to feed Moloch, the god of capitalism, the god that Allen Ginsberg in his apocalyptic poem Howl wails and rails against. Moloch, whose mind is pure machinery, Moloch whose blood is running money. Though we didn't see it when it first began, or even now when it has gone on for generations, we have been left with a fading after-image, a subconscious awareness of having sacrificed our children, which in turn has led us to guilt, denial, then an overprotective mania colored and compounded by sexual hysteria. Having sold off our only chance at immortality, we as a people, a species-wide family, are left with a subconscious awareness of having abandoned our children, generating guilt, denial, and then transference, states of mind easily manipulated and exploited by the priests who run the consumer economy, leading us to overprotect our children against random violence, sexual predation, accident, and fate, as if to preserve them and eventually their children and grandchildren as well, not for our afterlife, but for the permanent ongoing use of Moloch, the god of capitalism.